talk about motivation and Yerkes-Dodson law and its impact on your performance. So let's do a brief review. We've talked about motivation several times, but let's see how it was connected to the first half of the semester, even though we didn't mention it a lot in the first half, but how it's connected throughout the second half. So we talked about information processing theory, and that was a theory that we kind of ended the first half of the semester with. We had environmental stimulus coming in, and the different topics we talked about prior to getting to information processing. In week 2, we talked about social learning theory. Week 3, multiple intelligence theory. Week 4, types of knowledge and Bloom's taxonomy. And then week 5, we got into teaching style with experiential learning. Those all help you become an efficient learner because they help you pay attention to the elements that are easier for you to learn so you can get that information into short-term memory, rehearse it enough to get it over into long-term memory. First half of the semester, we focused a lot on explicit information, and we used implicit information, but more procedural knowledge process because we had an activity that was more hands-on so that we would have something to apply those theoretical concepts, that explicit knowledge to enhance learning. And I told you early on that we'll eventually get to the affective domain of Bloom's taxonomy, that other side of implicit knowledge being behavior and its impact on learning, motivation's impact on performance, how emotion can factor in, and how even conditioning can help be used for involuntary or voluntary learning, especially in terms of desired behaviors. And the affective domain, notice we have an arrow here pointing to motivation. Now let's go into motivation. Motivation was a key element that Bandura added on to information processing. He took elements of information processing, creating that mediating process, adding motivation to it. Now let's go into internal versus external motivation. What are the different types of motivation? I'm going to talk about this in terms of my own education and how I made the career choice that I did and why. First, let's look at internal motivation. I wanted a career I was passionate about, that I was interested in. There were things that I was curious about when I chose education and kinesiology, because there was a lot of enjoyment in that. With kines, I spent a lot of time in a gym, ran a fitness center, so it just made sense. For education, I was always curious about how people learned, the different theories that would help you become an efficient learner, because I needed that to get the degree I wanted, to be able to get into the career I wanted to do for the rest of my life, because that gave me purpose. And it was fun. So those are all internal motivation. That's what drove me. And I think that's why I did well, because I am an internally motivated person. I don't need a lot of external motivation. I'm not saying that it doesn't have an impact, but I almost always focus on the internal. And that's how I made my decision. Yes, I could have gotten out, made more money, but when I got out of high school, working a job that I hated, I really decided I didn't want to do that for the rest of my life, or the majority of the years that I would have the fitness to do the things that I wanted. Meaning the quality years, I didn't want to be doing some job that I hated. I wanted to be interested in it. I wanted to be passionate about it. And so that's why I chose not only kinesiology, but also education as a major. So now let's look at the external, because I'm not saying that there wasn't external factors that influenced my decision. There were. So I chose one that I could make a living off of. I didn't want to be struggling all through my life. I wanted a career that I could actually make money from and live comfortably, have the hobbies that I was interested in. I could continue to pursue those. Didn't necessarily have to be rich, just wanted to be comfortable. I received a lot of praise and feedback, not just from those that were surprised that I went to college. That was motivating, especially for those that doubted me. When I would receive praise from them or surprise, that really motivated me. And then I received some awards while I was in college, not to brag, but because I was internally motivated, learning came easy. It's not that I didn't have classes that were difficult. You'll always run up against those brick walls that they are super difficult tasks. But if you go internal, you have that internal locus of control like we talked about last time, and you are internally motivated, you'll focus on effort and your natural ability to get past those so that you can achieve what you want to achieve. So I was in Phi Theta Kappa. You had to have a 3.5 or above. At UNT, they would mail you out any semester you were on the president's list, so that means you had a perfect 4.0, or the dean's list, you had a 3.5 or higher. You received these awards in the mail. And I got those every semester. So I kept a high GPA because I needed that to get the grants that I needed, the money to go to school. So that was motivating, so I didn't have to pay out of pocket. So I had the Pell Grant for undergrad. I had received another grant that paid for all of my masters. I got another grant that paid for my PhD. So I paid nothing out of pocket for the actual classes. Yeah, I had to pay for books every once in a while. I had all my living expenses, but for actually my college, I paid nothing for it because I kept my grades high enough. And so money was a factor, right? I didn't want to have to pay for that. So it did motivate me to get good grades. Grades were important to me because I wanted to get that money. I wasn't necessarily an academic learner, but I was in a sense that it was going to fund my education because I was poor. and that receiving those grades was rewarding. I'm not going to lie. You know, especially somebody that did not expect to go to college, did not expect to do well in college. I was surprised at my own performance. So yeah, academic success. We have a combination of internal and external motivators. So we do have some overlap. That's the reason I've drawn this out like a Venn diagram. There is some shared variance between these two. Academic success not only can be rewarding or internally motivating because you're passionate and interested and enjoy the subject matter, but you may receive praise and awards for doing well, grades. All of that's rewarding and reinforcing. Punishment didn't play a role in there because I was an adult at the time. There was not much other than if I did not succeed, I would be punished by having to do a job I didn't want to do anymore. Relationships. Internal, external motivating factors for being in a relationship. You got to be careful with this. You definitely want to be in a relationship for more internal motivating factors than external, but there are some people that are in relationships for money, for the rewards that go along with that relationship. But really you want to look for relationships that you're passionate about, that you're interested in that person, that you have enjoyment with that person, there's purpose, and you all have a good time. For a lasting relationship, I should say. And then career success. I already listed how my academic success and career success both had internal and external, but I would definitely say internal motivation. If you want to have staying power, and this doesn't just go for career success, this could be with wellness, with health, with fitness. Look for things that are internally motivated because the external will fade over time. The internal, for me, just keeps getting stronger because you start to reap the rewards of doing well, and that just enhances this internal motivation, that internal drive even more because you can just get even deeper into that subject matter of your career, of the things that you're studying, and develop a knowledge that you never thought that you would get to. Start seeing connections you never thought you would see. And your job may even become your hobby. Like, that's what's happened with me. Or at least it's merged with some of my hobbies. So Yerkes-Dodson law, I love this. This is all about course design. Every time I design a course, it's right up there with Maslow's and Bloom's taxonomy in course design for me. So think of motivation when it says arousal level. You're going to have subjects that you're just bored out of your mind, and you're going to have difficulty learning because your performance is going to suffer because you're bored. Part of that's on you, right? Even if it's a boring subject or a boring teacher, you need to find a way to motivate yourself, internally motivate yourself to get you closer to this optimal level, to give yourself the best chance of success. You're going to take classes that are super difficult. Like for me, it was chemistry. For some reason, I thought I was going to have an easy time with the concepts of chemistry, and I was going to have a problem with the math, but it was just the opposite for me. I excelled at the math, but some of the concepts I struggled with. And I was always anxious on a test. Super difficult for me. But I was internally motivated, so I found ways to deal with the stress, and I'm pretty good with high levels of stress, so I was able to bring this back around so it wasn't paralyzing. Like I still got through the course. So that's when I'm designing a course, I don't want to bore the students out of their mind. I don't want it to be so difficult that they can't complete the course or they're super anxious. So I don't have a high focus on testing, assessments, multiple choice testing. I'm looking more for projects where students are in control of that so they can maintain their arousal level, even if they're not interested in the subject matter. Maybe you're not interested in educational theory and you were required to take this course. Another reason why I bring the activities in, so if you're just bored out of your mind on the subject matter, maybe we can link it to something that's physical that you like, that you're interested in. So that is Yerkes-Dodson law in a nutshell. Motivation and performance, right? So motivation is here. If it's low, you're bored out of your mind, your performance is going to suffer. If it's super stressful, task difficulty is super high, if we want to connect this back to attribution theory, you got to focus on your effort, your natural ability, and that'll improve your performance and reduce anxiety. Here are some references. So you can click on that link. This is SMART goals and the connection to intrinsic motivation. And there's Yerkes-Dodson law.